Okay, so I'm just, hopefully the recording has started. Okay, so this is quite a practical session that we've been asked to do in terms of we're not going to show many slides, but we're going to go through the steps that we use when we're moving all the references that we find from a systematic review into software to get to a point where it's kind of quite easy for the researcher to then look at all of the abstracts and make decisions and record all those decisions. So I'm going to show a couple of slides just to begin with. If I just share my screen with you. So let's just start this slideshow, hopefully. Okay, and this beginning slide just reminds us that this is it's organised by the AMIPS and the Response projects, but it's also open to participants from the Chorus, Arise and the Adawa projects that are also involved. Okay, and a reminder to please keep your camera and microphone off, as this is going to hopefully help with any bandwidth issues that we have. So we're going to start off with a poll, a question for you, because it'd be interesting for us to see what you already know. So have you used any reference management or systematic review software? I'm going to launch the poll now. So hopefully you can all see that and start voting. If you can't, can somebody just let me know? Oh, it looks like you can, because I can see a few people have already started to vote. So you can select as many or as few of these as you would like. That's great. It looks like about just over half of everybody has already voted. So we'll keep it going another sort of 10 seconds or so, as we've got most people, I think, who voted. Okay, so I'll just count down from 5 for the last voters. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'll end the voting, and I'll share the results. So yeah, so a lot of you have used Endnote, more than half, so that's great, and we're going to be demonstrating with Endnote today. But some of the Mendeley, a lot of people have used that as well. So it looks like there's, probably at least half of you have used some software, but there's people who haven't used any of these and are less familiar. They all look quite different, the softwares, but essentially they do very similar processes. So depending on what your availability is to them, how accessible they are, I'm hoping with this session we can show you what's possible in Endnote and Rayon, and then most of those things are possible to some level with the other databases and the other software. So it's a case of working out how you use those to achieve those goals. Okay, right, I'm going to stop sharing my results and let's move on to the actual demonstration. So I've got to move about quite a bit with this presentation between some different programs. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to a literature search. So let me just share that screen with you, because what I want to do is start off from the beginning, where we have done our literature search and we've got some results and how we export those to go into reference management package. So I'm using a small literature search for the purposes of demonstration, so we haven't got a lot of files and a lot of references to manage, but it just gives you an idea of the different steps. So this is a search that I was doing for studies about the prevalence of nurses who self-harm. So it's quite an interesting search in that there's not much literature on searches on nurses who self-harm, but there's quite a lot of literature on patients who self-harm, obviously, which are looked after by nurses and maybe the nurse interaction. And so there's a lot of literature that isn't actually relevant to our question, but it's quite hard to remove that from the search. So we know we've got 200 nearly records here from our search. Not many of them will be relevant, but we have to look at them to find the relevant ones. Okay, so once I've got my results, 196 here, this is my sort of final search line. They're then displayed below, and I'm using Ovid Medline here for my search. And I want to grab all of those, to get a file all of those ready to go into my Endnote library. So I select all, and then I export. And when you go to export, there are a number of different options in export. So you can just create a Word document, and there's lots of different file types which will work with different sorts of reference managers. But a common one to use is the RIS file. RIS is a standard sort of software file format that is recognized by many different softwares. So if there is a possibility of you using a RIS file or saving anything as a RIS file, then I'd recommend you do that, because that's recognized by pretty much all the different reference management and review management software. So I'm going to save this as a RIS file. I'm going to keep the complete reference, going to keep all the information, because I don't really know exactly what I'm going to need beyond the basic information, but any extra might be useful. And I'm making sure I've got a record of the search history in there as well. Okay, if I click export, it's then going to create a file for me, which is, yeah, it's just at the bottom of the screen there. Okay, it's called a RIS file. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this in my downloads folder, and I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to have to, sorry, I'm just going to have to share a different screen for now. Let's move back to, I'm not sure if I can I share this screen? I don't think I can share the screen where I'm renaming the file. Sorry about that. So basically what I'm going to do is, instead of calling it a RIS file, it was called the file that I opened. Let me go back to one second. Okay, so the file which I saved is called a ris3.ris file, and if you're doing lots of searches in different databases and downloading these files, you can very quickly get mixed up with which file is which and which database it's from. So I show this in a folder, so I can then just get to the file name and change it, and I change it to something that's more helpful. So I rename it as Medline, because that's the database it's come from, and 195, because that's the number of records that I think I've downloaded from Medline. That's how many should be there. And it's a great way to check when you're importing records into Endnote, if you know how many are expected to go in, and if that number goes in, that's great. Sometimes you can, by mistake, just download the first 10 records. So it's good to just have that check that you know exactly how many records are coming in. Okay, so you can't see it, but I have just renamed my file in my downloads. Okay, so the next thing to do is to go to Endnote, and so let me load up my Endnote for you. Okay, so now we have Endnote hopefully showing for you. I'm going to open a new library. I'm just going to put this on the desk. I'll put it in our webinar folder here that I've got. I'm just going to call it webinar. Okay. So here we have an empty Endnote library. Quite a few of you have seen Endnote before, so I won't spend too much time going through Endnote. It's probably easy for me to talk through it when we've got some records in. So I'm going to import those records, which I've just saved in my Medline search. So if I click on the down arrow to import, it gives me an option to choose which file I want to import. So it was actually in my downloads folder, the files that I've just created for Medline. So if I go to my download folder and choose my Medline 195 and click open. Okay, and then I choose the import option. Because I've done this a lot recently, it's already on the RIS file option, which is the one I want. But just to show you, there are lots of other import options. So, for example, there's a clinical trials one here for the clinical trials website, clinicaltrials.gov website. So if you do a search there and you download records into a file, you would use this filter to import them with. So that you've got a few options up here for different types of files that Endnote accepts. And there's also an other filters option here, where when you click on that, you get a list of hundreds of different filters, which are specially designed for different databases that you might be using. So it's worth really getting to grips with Endnote if you're using it. We're going to circulate some links of different sort of YouTube videos, guides, and instructions for using Endnote. What I'm going to do is just kind of give you a quick run through the processes we take, but there's a lot more to the software. Okay, so I click import and we're expecting 195, oh sorry, was it 6? Let me just check my Medline. I've just gone back to my Medline search. It was actually 196 records that I downloaded from Medline. Apologies for that, that was my mistake. What seems to happen at the moment when I'm downloading RIS files is it's adding an extra blank record. So it's gone up to 197. It's telling me in the top left-hand corner we've imported 197. This top record here is a blank one, so I'm just going to delete that. Okay, so you can all see these records that we've got from Medline, from Medline into Endnote, and at the bottom part of the screen we have a different window here which has the full reference details, so you can look at all the different data we've got there for this record, the web page, any notes, the keywords, the abstract, and so on. And a smaller set of information is presented at the top, and we can just go through each of those one by one if we want to. But what we're going to do is we're going to import all of our different database searches into Endnote and look at them all together and take some duplicates out. Because when we're doing searches for reviews, we'll often find hundreds, if not thousands, of records. So there will be hundreds of duplicates in there, and we don't really want to have to screen those duplicates. It's a big process. So you only want to look at that record once, not several times. Okay, part of preparing the library for duplicate checking is for us, we find it useful to label the records with the database they came from, because sort of with experience and checking, we've realised that the references that come from Medline are really good quality and often better quality than references from some other databases. So other databases, maybe they're missing some information like the page numbers, or the journal title has been written in a non-standard format, or perhaps it's missing the abstract. So we want to know where the database is, which database the record has come from. So if we're deleting any records, we keep the version that's from the more reliable database. Okay, so to do that, I've got a field over here, and you can change the fields that you're looking at the columns, I've just right-clicked there, so you can see there's lots of different things that you can look at. You can tailor this to however you want to see it. But I find it useful to have a name of database field at the beginning, and then my basic bibliographic details for the records: author, year, title, journal, volume, pages, and abstract. And I'm going to fill this database field with Medline, because all of these 196 are from Medline. To do that, I go to Tools, Change, Move, Copy Fields, and then in this box for changing the field, I'm going to select the name of database field and replace the whole field with the word Medline and click OK. And it's just checking with me, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to change the name of database field to have the word Medline in 196? Because you can't undo this. You can't go back once you've done this. This is a permanent change. I'm going to click OK. And it's fairly quick, and that's why we've used a small number of records. This takes a bit longer if you're trying to do this for thousands. And there we have it really quickly. That says Medline for all of our records. Okay, I'm just going to move things around a little bit. So those are our Medline records in. I'm going to quickly put in a few other database records. So these are ones that I have previously done. So I've clicked down to import. I'm going to choose my file. And if I go back to my folder on the desktop, there's an Embase file that I've saved beforehand, which has got 97 records in. I'm going to open that one. This is the one I want to import. I want the RIS formats, that's fine, and I click import. So we've got, I was expecting 97. We've got 98, but there's this one blank one at the beginning that I need to delete. And then while I've got them here, I can see on the left-hand side, I could look at all references, or I can just look at these 97 I've imported. While I've got these here together, I'm going to change the name of database for these to Embase. So I replace the whole field with the word Embase. I've got the name of database. Okay. Okay. So we can now go and look at all the references. So now we've gone up from 196 to 293, and we've got a mixture in here of Medline and Embase records. And you can already see, quite obviously, there are some duplicates there. Okay, I'm going to carry on though, because I just want to get one more file in. And if you're doing a review, you may have 5 or 10 different files to import, so it takes a little bit longer than this, obviously, but this is the process of doing that, of importing them, of recording the names that you've got. So if I go to Tools, Change and Move Fields, oops, we want this to be the name of database field, and like info. Okay, so we're nearly ready to do the duplicate checking. I've got 385 there. Oh, actually, what I should have done in my psych info, just go back to those, should have deleted that blank line. Let me just delete that blank record there. That's it. Okay, right, before we go and duplicate check, I'm going to just show you something that I do alongside adding all the references into Endnote, because this is a really good time to start tracking and recording your database searches. So if I stop sharing this screen and share a Word document screen. So where am I? Let me just see if I can find that. Here we go. So this is a Word document that I've got, where I record all of the different databases that I've searched and how many records I've found. So at this point, I start adding to this. So I would say I've got 91 records in Psych Info, 196 for Medline, and 97, I think it was, for Embase. I would double check that. We'll just do this quickly for now. And so then I would total up my records at the end of that. And once we've taken the duplicates out, I would add it here, how many records we had at the end of Endnote once we've got rid of the duplicates. So we're going to have about just under 400, haven't we? In fact, I can put that in now. Just check we've got 384. We've got 384 in Endnote, and then we will take duplicates out and record that number. And you need these numbers for your Prisma diagram to say how many you found at the beginning and how many you had once the duplicates had come out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that and we will go back to Endnote. So, Endnote. Okay. So to do the duplicate checking, there is a standard duplicate check feature in Endnote, and it's pretty straightforward. You just go to the references at the top of the screen and then find duplicates. And it runs a default duplicate check where it looks at the author, the year, the title, and the reference type. So whether the database has marked it as a journal article or a book chapter, that kind of thing. So it does that, and that actually only finds about half of the duplicates which are in there, I think, in average. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to show you another way of changing our duplicate settings so we find some more duplicates. But we'll do the basic duplicate check first, just to show you that. When you've run the check, it comes up with this box in the middle and it offers you the 2 records that it thinks are duplicates. And there's, in the blue highlights, it shows you where there's differences in between the records. So you can have a look through and decide which record you want to keep and which one you don't want to keep. For a systematic review with thousands of records, this takes, you know, a very, very long time to do things one by one. So we generally don't go through duplicates one by one like this. What I do is I just click cancel on this box, which still shows us the duplicates, but just shows us them all together. I just need to move something out of the way from my screen. There we go. So it's now showing us a list of records. The blue ones which are highlighted are ones which Endnote thinks are duplicates of the white one above. And you can see these definitely do look like duplicates. Obviously the author year title is exactly the same, that the pages are formatted slightly different, but generally they do look like they're the same. So, you know, I'd have a quick check through to see if these page numbers are matching, if there's abstracts there. What happens now is I can press delete and everything highlighted in blue will be deleted. So I just need to check that I'm deleting the right version of the record. If there was a record in blue, say this stress cause of nurses suicide, blue one, say that had an abstract and the white one didn't have an abstract, I would change which one I was going to delete. So I'd hold down my control key and change it so I don't delete the one with the abstract. I think I'm just going to press delete here because I've looked at all these before and they are duplicates, and they don't need a huge check if you know that the author year title is a match, but it is worth just flicking down through the pages in the abstract to see that they look the same. So I press delete now and we've got rid of a lot of duplicates. Our references have now gone down to 276 all in all. But there are still some duplicates in there. So it looks like, well, there's some which look quite similar, but are not quite the same. Let me see. I'm going to organise by title because I know there are there are some in here. So let's just see. Yes, straight away there's a couple down here. Association between suicide risk, and that, I think that wasn't picked up before, maybe because the authors are formatted quite differently, even though we can see they are the same authors. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and also there's a few more down here I can see. What I'm going to do is I'll show you how we can change our duplicate settings so we can find some more. So you can go into Edit and Preferences. And this is a really useful tool, actually, the Edit Preferences, because this allows you to really change things on your screen, and lots of different options about how Endnote's working. I've already got it here highlighted as the duplicates, but you can kind of go between all these different options on the left. But on the duplicates option, you set what Endnote is going to check for as a duplicate. So I'm going to change this. So we're just going to look at a match, saying the author and the year for this time. I'm going to take the reference type off. So those are the only two fields that I'm asking to look for as a duplicate. If I click OK, so that's set. And then what I need to do is run that duplicate check again now. So if I go to References and Find Duplicates, it's found another 12. So these are extra ones to the ones it found last time. I'm going to close this so I can see all of them together. And I just need to double check these are duplicates. Some definitely are. So the first one is, and it wasn't picked up before because it's got an extra bit in the title on the second one. The Corona Rules Hoax, that isn't a duplicate. We can see that those titles are completely different. But obviously the author and the year is the same. The next one is a duplicate. This Chung 2016 one, again, that's not a duplicate, but the Yonge one is, and this last one isn't, Kaplan. So as you loosen up the criteria that you're checking duplicates for, you need to be more careful. You need to have more of a check as to whether they really are duplicates or not. So I press delete, we'll get rid of those. Okay. I'm sorry if you're getting lots of beeps. It's basically every time somebody's coming in or to the room, that's where we get, I'm getting the noises there. I'm not quite sure how I can turn those off. Okay, so that's how you can change your duplicate preferences. We have a whole routine where we change them about 10 different times. We have lots of different combinations, looking at the title and the pages, and the journals, and cutting it lots of different ways to find those different duplicates. So we've got that in an instruction guide, a word guide, which we will circulate to, and I will show you that later as well. Okay, so I'm going back to all my references. We're nearly ready now to create a file to go into Rayon, which is the software we're going to be using for screening. So I'm not going to go through and take all the duplicates out. I mean, I can see some more now. You know, as soon as I see them, I want to get rid of them. But I won't, because we've already done this, Natalie and I. We've done this on a sort of, so Natalie has a file without all of the duplicates as well, that she's going to use in Rayon. But that was just to give you an example. The final thing we need to do before we take our records into Rayon is change the notes field in Endnote. So if I scroll across, yes, I have got the notes field showing here. If I just move that like that, you can see it. So for a few records, there is a bit of information in the notes field. Not much, but there is some things in there. Now this is a problem when we get into Rayon, because when you're in Rayon and you're screening your abstracts one at a time, and you're giving some reasons why you're including or excluding those abstracts. You're labelling records, why you're excluding. Perhaps it's not about nurses, or perhaps it's not about self-harm. Those exclusion reasons are recorded in the notes field in Rayon. So that will get mixed up. Those exclusion reasons would get mixed up with the notes that we bring in from Endnote. So what I want to do is remove all the notes from Endnote, or take everything out of that field. So that's empty when it goes into Rayon, so it doesn't confuse with the Rayon notes. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to delete the notes completely out of Endnote, because they might be useful. There might be some useful information. So we move it to a custom field. So Endnote has, I think, 8 different custom fields, and I'm going to get rid of my name of database field, so I've got space, and then I'm going to add in custom 8 fields, so you can just see what's going to happen. So this is an empty field. There's nothing, we're not using it for anything else, but I'm going to move everything from notes into custom, so it's nice and clean for Rayon. So what I do is back to Tools, Change and Move Fields, and this time I need to move my notes field. So I go to Move Copy Fields, and I want to move all the information from Notes to Custom 8. Okay. So it's just checking, do I really want to do this? Because I can't undo it once it's done. I'll just click OK. So these are really useful features of Endnote that you might want to use in other circumstances as well. So that's partly why we thought it's useful to demonstrate that. So yes, you can now see in Custom 8 we have got those notes. They've moved across, and the notes field is now empty. Okay, so we're now ready just to take this file out. So imagine we've gone through all of the duplicate checking, got rid of all the duplicates. We just want to export a file. So there's an arrow at the top here. We can click export. I'm going to put this on my desktop. In documents. I just put it, yeah, in my documents, and then so we'll call it webinar for Rayon, and again I'm going to put the number of records. So in this case it's 273, so I know if I'm importing this file, that's how many records I need to get. I need to just turn off this little box, export selected records, because I think there is one record selected. If I turn that off, then I'll just get all the records in the library, which is what I want. So I click save, and that record, those records are now saved. Okay, so I think that's, oh no, that's not everything. I'm just checking my notes, and actually there was one thing that I forgot to do, and that's why it's helpful to have a list of things, a list of processes that you do when you're dealing with your Endnote library. So one is we're taking duplicates out and we're changing the duplicate fields. Another is that we're moving the notes field, so that's empty. And the third thing to do actually is to check the abstract field, because if I just go over to the abstract field and if I sort all the records by abstract, quite a few of these records don't have an abstract. Now it might be that that's just the case. Perhaps it's a letter and there isn't an abstract of a letter, but sometimes there is an abstract available, but it just didn't come through from that database. So what we can do is we can ask Endnote to look in PubMed and Web of Science, a couple of other databases that it can link to see if there's another record for this particular reference, and offer that to us as a potential update. So we do that to see if we can get some better records, or records with abstracts, because when you're doing a review and you're screening, it's very difficult to decide if a paper's in or out just on the title. So ideally you want to look at the abstract, and if you can't look at the abstract, very often you probably have to look at the full text to really tell, and that again takes a lot more time to find the full text, to download it, and then to read the whole thing. So we want to get as many abstracts and screen as many papers based on the abstract as possible. Okay, so what I would normally do is I would select all of these records without an abstract and run this thing called full reference update. I'm not going to do that because that will take too long, but if I just select a few, I'm not sure, I'm selecting the more recent ones because I think they're probably more likely to have something, but let's see. Okay, so if I go to references now, for those references that I've selected, and do find reference update, it's now looking for updates of 7 references, and if it finds any, it will offer them to me. So here we go, it's found one for the nursing standard, and it's a bit like the duplicate checking in that it shows you them side by side. This is my reference on the right, this is an available update, and in blue it highlights the different the differences. So there's a bit more information on the left in some of the fields, but actually some things are not. Some things I prefer in my reference, so I prefer this a web address with a proper link there in my reference. Okay, it doesn't look like there's an abstract there. What I usually do is I just ask the database to update the empty fields. So unless my reference looks, looks really poor and needs a really big change, I would just update the empty fields to bring over any extra information. So if there happens to be an abstract, that will, and mine was blank, that would go in there. So if I click update empty fields, and then it's saying, do I want to do this for all the other references in my updates? I'm going to say yes. And it's now carrying on looking through those other references to find any updates. If it does, it will update those references, but just the empty fields that it's got some information for. Okay, so we run that on all of the records that don't have an abstract to see if we can get a few more abstracts in there. Okay, and yeah, it says check back later for more updates. So it's done all the updates it can, but sometimes we may come back and run this 6 months or a year later if we're, if it's a long-running review, and you can often get some updates as the database is continually improving. Okay, so now at this point, this is when I should export my file ready for Rayon, because these are an updated set of records. So yeah, I would now export these records as I did before, and we're calling this webinar 273 because that's how many records we've got, and save. Okay. When we first did this exercise in Endnote and we took all the duplicates out, we found that we'd got down to 259 records. So that's the file which Natalie has to work with. She won't be working with this one because this has still got some duplicates in. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I think I've done everything up to that point, Natalie. So I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who will hopefully be able to take over sharing the screen and show us yeah, how we do this the next stage in Rayon.
That's lovely. Thank you, Judy. I have some issues with Zoom sometimes not seeing what I see on the screen. So when I take over the screen, I'm going to ask Judy if she can jump in if you can't see what I'm demonstrating. I'm not sure if I have to turn it on and off again. But I'm going to carry on with the next step. So once we've got all of our references sorted out, we've got our Endnote library. So I'm going to share our screen now. What I'm finding is when I share the screen, I lose Zoom. So please bear with me. Right. So I'm going to share screen 2. So once we've created our review, click share. Okay, can you see the Endnote library there?
Yes, I can.
Lovely, thank you. So Judy's created and deduplicated our Endnote library and Endnote. So what I'll be doing is I will now be taking this to Rayon so that we can start screening our review. Now, Rayon is some free web-based software that's really, really great if you're doing collaborations. I can see that we've got lots of our AMIPS team here, and they were our first experiment using it for collaboration. So I've learned a little bit more since I showed them what to do. But it's a great piece of software. It's really good for recording your screening decisions, and particularly for doing your includes and excludes, and particularly when you're co-screening as well. If you've just got one person screening, you can fairly much do it in EndNote, do it on Word. But if you've got lots and lots of people, and particularly if your colleagues are in different institutions or different countries, it helps to have sort of this web-based system that you can all see and all share at the same time. And another nice thing about Rayon as well is it's also available to use offline. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone, there's also an app you can use, so you don't always have to be linked to your computer. So first of all, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to create a Rayon library. So I'm going to go to Google and type in Rayon. Can you see that, Judy?
Yes, that's showing up fine, thank you.
Lovely. So to go to Rayon, it comes up with a screen like this. So, oh, there's some people in the waiting room. Could you let
Don't worry about that, yeah.
Yep. So you come up with this screen. So this shows you the PC version, the iPhone version, and the iPad version. So again, you can sort of use it. Some people have described it as a bit like Tinder for references. If you're using the iPad or the iPhone, you just sort of swipe and you can choose your references. We always use the PC version. So if you haven't got a Rayon account, it's free to sign up. So just sign up here, pop in your details, and then within a day or two, Rayon should be able to sort of allow you permission and allow you references. So I've already got an account. So I'm just going to sign in. And then when you sign into your Rayon account, you come up with a screen like this. So there's always 4 tabs there. My reviews are any reviews that I've created. If you see a collaboration review, these are the reviews you'll have if someone has invited you to be a co-screener. Never use the translation only reviews. Apparently that's for using if you have a reviewer who can translate abstracts for you. So I'm not sure how often people use that one. And then there's always these other reviews here, which are sort of freely available ones that you can have a look and sort of look at the features. So if you're using Rayon for the first time, you can click on these reviews and have a look and see what it looks like. So what we want to do is we want to create a new review. So I'm just going down to the bottom here, creating a new review. So I give it a title. So it's going to be, I'll call it Webinar Self-Harm. I can write a description in here if I want to give myself some more information about it. And then it's as simple as just creating a new library. So when I create a new review in Rayon, what it asks me to do is select my files. Now these files are the RIS files that we've created from our Endnote library. And it's as simple as going to select files. And I'm going to go to my desktop. Can you see that?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Right. So this is the RIS file that Judy created earlier. I'm going to open it. And it's now loaded into my Rayon library. What you can do, sometimes if you have a very large review, you may be doing, you may be splitting the review and the screening between multiple reviewers. So you might want to create multiple RIS files to load up. You can also load those in bulk. So instead of loading one, I could say select 4 or 5 files instantaneously and they will all load together. So once I've loaded my RIS files, or you can do Excel files, PubMed files, I'm going to go to my Rayon review and, oh, I forgot to click enter. So I'm just going to go back. Just need to move this window so I can see. Go back to my review. That's the first time it hasn't loaded up instantly for me. Okay, So, right. Oh, there they are. Oh, they're just going a little bit slowly. I wonder what's happened there. Right, well, while it's doing that, rather than taking time, I'll take you to another review. Okay. So I've loaded up my 259 references in the review, which I can see here. It's called Search Methods. Every file you load into Rayon always starts with uploaded references. And then if you pull the window across here, it also contains the name of the file that you loaded as well. Originally, I loaded it as Nurse Self-Harm, not Webinar. And it contains the number of references, so you can see how many references you've loaded. On the left-hand panel, we have a whole series of filters here. And on the right-hand panel contains all the records that we have. So we can sort by author, we can sort by title, we can see how many records we actually have in our review and how many are on this screen. The useful thing as well is you have lots of keywords and ways of sorting your records. So because we're doing a review about nurses and self-harm, I have actually added some additional keywords here, suicide and self-harm, and it's as easily as going like this. Another one that came up quite often was suicidality. Click OK. And here I can see that 21 of my records contain that keyword. So we have keywords for include. Rayon will highlight them in green. So again, this just helps us with our screening process and help speed up the screening. One thing you may find, Rayon is originally done for doing screening interventions. So again, a lot of the included keywords are all designed around randomized controlled trials. So again, if there are keywords that we don't want to include, we can easily remove them by just clicking on the trash icon and removing all of the keywords that aren't useful to us. And again, it's the same with the keywords for exclude, because it's designed for doing interventions. It's going to have lots of terms like prevalence, observational studies, which in our instance are actually quite useful, but here they're not considered relevant. So again, if there are exclude keywords that I do want to have in my review, I can remove them and I can also add them. And as Judy mentioned earlier, self-harming nurses is quite a tricky topic to screen and search for, because again, so many nurses work with adolescents who self-harm. So what I've done is I've actually added some keywords of terms that I know are likely to be instantly excluded. So I've typed in the word adolescent here. Another one that I found that came up a lot as well is nurses' attitudes. So if I put attitudes as a keyword for exclude, I've got 19 records here. So I can use these filters to easily help me screen. So for example, I want to quickly screen things out. I know a lot of the adolescent studies are not, it does take a little bit of time as well. If you're finding, I'm only seeing one record here when I'm expecting 11.
I think you might need to clear some of your...
Yeah, I was just about to do that. Thank you, Judy. So I've obviously got several filters on. So if you are finding you're expecting to see 11 and you're only seeing one, there must be other filters there that are on that you don't want. So it's just as easy as either clearing your browser here or scrolling up and down your filters to find out whether or not there's a filter on that you don't want to see. So now I have all 259 of my records again. I'm going to go to quickly screen out some of the records that I don't want. And so here I have 11 entries that are likely to be about adolescent self-harming rather than nurses. So when I want to screen these records, I click on the record I'm interested in, and then I have a choice of including, maybe if I'm not sure if I want to include it or not, or exclude. You can also use keyboard shortcuts here as well. So I can just type the word I and I can automatically include a study. And when you are using it for reviews as well, I beg your pardon, my dog's just come home and he's a little bit excited. I can click exclude. And when we're screening for our review, in the initial title abstract screen, it's not so important to include the reasons for why you're excluding. But certainly when you come to the full text stage of screening, you need to record all your reasons for why studies are excluded. So again, if I'm interested in this one, it's about adolescents, it's the wrong population type. So if I click on why I'm excluding it, it gives me my reasons for excluding, as well as automatically excluding it for me. We could also see as well, these labels come up here. So again, when it comes to doing my Prisma diagram, I know that I've excluded 7 of my studies because it was the wrong population. 2 of them are background articles that they might not be relevant for my review, but I might want to go back to them later to sort of help me write up my introduction and my discussion. I've excluded some because they're the wrong outcome. But one of the main things you want to do as well, particularly with Rayon, the reason why this is such useful software that we've found is I really want to have some co-screeners with me. So if I want to invite someone to help me screen, I go back to all reviews. I go back to my review and, well, actually I'll go to my blank one first. I want to invite other co-screeners. So again, there are 3 types of co-screeners that I can invite to my review. A collaborator, so that's someone who can co-screen. They can add labels, they can add populations, they can include and exclude studies. There is a translator, which we haven't used at all. That's a person who can use the translation-only reviews and translate abstracts for you. And a viewer, so perhaps if you're a student and you may have a co-screener with you, but your supervisor needs access but won't be involved in the screening, you can give them permissions to view the review, but they can't make any changes and they can't make any decisions. So you just pop in your screener, your colleague that you want to invite. So I'd like to invite Judy to a review, write her a brief message, click invite, and then Rayon will automatically send her a message and invite her to the review. If she's already got a Rayon account, she can log straight in and it will be there under collaboration. If your colleague doesn't have a Rayon account, they'll need to sign up first and then they can join in and they can find the review you shared with them under collaboration reviews. So once I've invited my colleague, this is the screen that I get. So I can see how many of my references have been screened and the decisions that have been made, whether we're unsure and it's a maybe, the studies have been included or the studies are excluded. You also get a breakdown of how much time they've spent on the review and how many times they've entered the session. As a creator of the review, I have the power to turn the blind on or the blind off. So when blind is on, whenever you or a co-screener enters the review, you can only see the decisions that you've made. So if you have a large review with a lot of screening, every time you come back to it, what we've found as a useful shortcut is rather than having to screen through everything, you can just go to the undecided references. So you're only looking at the references that you still need to screen. But once you've completed your review, so you can see that I've included 12, excluded 12, and there's one that I'm not sure whether to include or exclude. When you've completed the screening with your colleague, and you'll be able to see if they've completed their decision by this pie chart here, you can turn blinding off. Again, only the person who created the review can do this. And once blinding is off, when we go back to our review in Rayon, you can see all the decisions that everybody has made. So again, when I look at my included studies, I can see Judy and I have got 10 studies together. We have excluded 11, although there's a conflict in 3 of the studies, Judy and I have disagreed. So when you've finished your review and you've come to resolving your decisions, this is the place you go to. So I find you need to look at conflict, and you also need to look at maybe, because sometimes one person has got maybe and another person has got in, or a third reviewer may have screening out. To resolve these conflicts, there's several things you can do. We tend to go onto a meeting with either Teams or Zoom. All of us will have the screen open. So I'm not sure if Judy has her screen open, but I've looked at Judy's decision here about suicide in female nurses in England and Wales, and actually, yeah, it is an exclude because I think it's a review, so it's not going to be relevant. So to change my decision, it's as easy as clicking on the reference and clicking exclude. And if you're both on it at the same time together, you can actually see their decisions. It sort of happens within seconds. Another feature in Rayon that we've recently discovered is you can also use review chat. So if you and another reviewer are both online, you can sort of see I'm online, Judy's not at the moment. So you can actually have a live conversation and chat while you're doing the review. So if you're not sure about something or you want to change a decision. So we're going to, even though I haven't completed this review, we're going to assume that we have, because we don't have time to screen 234 references. That will take us about an hour or so. So now that I've got my included studies, what I'd like to do here is I'd like to export them so that I can take them to Endnote. So this is our initial screen. So what we do is we recommend that you create 2 Rayon reviews if you're doing a systematic review. The first is the initial title abstract screen. This one is a quick screen where you're quickly deciding whether or not studies are going through to the next round with the full text screening stage. When you're co-screening, we tend not to include many reasons, just if it's really obvious or if you think there might, if you're not sure and you want to discuss it. But certainly when you create your second review for the full text screen, it's really important that you record every single reason why you're excluding a study. Be consistent, and also only have one reason for excluding a study as well, because when it comes to doing your Prisma document, it might be the wrong outcome, it might be the wrong population. You can also add extra reasons and labels as well. So again, if you want to add an additional reason, if it's part of your inclusion and exclusion screening criteria, you can add new reasons here. Reasons come up in red. So if we look at our excluded studies and you see this white and red background, these are our exclusion reasons. So it helps you and your co-screener decide why a study is not included. Something that we've found useful as well is a label field. So I've created a label called prevalence. So if I want to add a prevalence study, if I'm interested in the number of nurses who self-harm. So again, when I'm looking at my labels here, I can look at all the studies that have come up with prevalence. Again, I have excluded studies. So that should come up now. I have 2 studies that are related to prevalence. If I want to add an additional label, I don't know, perhaps UK studies, I add a new label here. And then, so again, if I'm looking at sorting my information, if I'm interested in all the UK studies, if I add the UK label to the relevant studies, again, when I go down to my labels here, I can quickly find the studies of interest. Now, I've completed my title abstract review screening with Judy. So the next step I want to do is, I'm just going to clear this again. What I want to do now is I want to create a new Rayon library, and I need to find the full text for my full text screening review. So I'm going to export all of my included studies. We have 10 of these here. So I go to included. So I filter the references of interest. I click on export. When I export, I don't want all of my references. I only want my filtered references. I want my 10 included studies. I'm going to use a RefMan RIS style. I want to include all this information, and I'm going to export it. So within about 5-10 minutes, Endnote will send me an email, and then it will download a file. So this is the type of file we get. Okay. So can you see a compressed file that I have here? Yep. So Endnote will send me a compressed file. If I open that file, it comes down in 2 parts. It has an Excel customizations log that's just got the bare details of the project, and it also has a RIS formatted file. So I am going to copy this and move it into my folder. I will move my folder here and paste it. So now what I'm going to do is go back to my Endnote library, and I'm going to create a group of include for my full text screen. So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either go to your Rayon library and manually pull across the references that you want in your included studies, or I'm going to take a little bit of a shortcut. So I'm just going to quickly see which references have included. So I'm going to import those Rayon files. So choose, these are my articles here. So I'm going to open it, and it's a RIS file. So I'm going to change it to a RIS format and import. And there's 11. The reason there's 11 is that was one I did yesterday when I had 11 instead of 10. So please don't get hung up on the numbers. Then, so I know that these are just spare files that I don't want to keep, I'm going to quickly label them. So change, move, and copy fields. And in my name of database, I'm going to call them Rayon. Okay. So we have here name of database, they're my Rayon files. So now I'm going to look for my duplicates. So I should have 22 records. And again, we can see, so I'm just clicking Control and clicking on a record. My duplicates should all be my Rayon files. So I don't want these, I want to delete them. But I have a set of those 11 records of the included studies that I had in my Rayon library. So now I'm going to move these into my full text group. And I have a group of all the included studies that I want to take forward to my full text screening stage. So now that I have these records, I'm going to run a find reference update on them. Now, Judy did this earlier just to look for abstracts. If you've done it recently, it's fine, but quite often it will be several weeks or several months since you've done your screening, you've downloaded the references. So if it was an EPUB ahead of print or it doesn't have the full citation details, I find that finding full text of these just gives you a cleaner record. So you've got more chance when Endnote goes out to the web to find free PDFs that you've got it. So then I would go to references, find reference update and do a reference update. Again, that can take several minutes, so I'm not going to do this now. So I've updated my references. They're as good as they can be. The next thing I want to do is I want to find full text. So I'm going to do Control A to select all the references in my included full text group. And then I want Endnote to go out to the web and find any PDFs it can for me. So I have here in my preferences, I have the little attachment icon. And there's 2 ways I can find full text. I can go to References, find full text, or I'm quite visual, so I like to use icons. So this little PDF find full text icon here, you can click on that, and then Endnote goes out onto the web and it's searching for those 11 references. While it's searching for those 11 references, it will give you a breakdown of what it's found and what it hasn't found. So we can see that so far it hasn't found one of my references. it's found the PDF of one and it's found a link to the other. Something you need to be aware of is just because you can't find a free PDF using Endnote, it doesn't mean you don't have access to it. So what we always recommend that our students do is use Endnote first to find as many PDFs as you can to save you a little bit of time and a little bit of work. Again, we can see that we've found 4 full text. Try and get as many PDFs as you can, but if it doesn't find them, don't worry. You can always go to your institution, use your institution's resources. Also go and search things like Google Scholar and search on the web, because Endnote won't find anything, but it doesn't mean it's not available. So now my Find Full Text is finished. It's found 4 full text here. 3 of them has found the link, so that will take you directly to the journal article itself, and you can log in and see if you have access through your institution. And with 4 of them, it couldn't find them anywhere. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort my references by PDF, by attachments, and then I'm going to create another group. And I know that these references here I need to go and source the full text of those myself. So then I can go off and get document supply. If I have an information specialist, I can get them and go and find the references for me. So I can use notes fields. So I know that these are the records I need to go and source full text. Meanwhile, what I will do is I will start creating an Endnote library so we can start screening by the full text stage. So I will create a new Rayon library. So nurse, self-harm, FT, so I know it's my full text screen. You may want to use a name that your colleagues will be aware of as well. I'm going to create that. And I need to export my files. So these 11 studies here, I'm going to export them as refmanRes, save, select them, continue. And again, we have my new review with my 11 references. Then I would go back and invite my colleagues to join me. So now that I have my references in my new Rayon review for my full text screen, I need to get the PDFs in there. So we've got Endnote to do a lot of the hard work for us. So we know that we've got 4 references here. Quite often we have reviews with thousands of records. So for instance, I'd done one recently that had 1,500 records, and Rayon Endnote found over 350 of my PDFs that I needed to find. So what I need to do, unfortunately with Rayon, it's not like Covidence, you can't bulk upload the PDFs, you have to add them manually one by one. So there's 2 ways you can do it. If you've only got a few, like 3 or 4, it's just as easy to open the PDF, save it and load it. But if you have multiple PDFs, there's a nice shortcut you can do using your Endnote library by extracting all the PDFs and moving them into a folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder. So I am going to create a folder for my PDFs. So there's where I'm going to keep all my PDFs. So again, when I get document supply from my library or I go to my library resources, all my PDFs will go in the same folder, so they're nice and easy to find. But I'm going to create another temporary folder where I can extract my PDFs from Endnote. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Endnote, Endnote always creates two separate files whenever you create an Endnote library. So here we have our Nurse of Harm Endnote library. So every time we go and use our Endnote library, we will click on this purple link and read our Endnote library. But associated with that is a data folder. And within the data folder, that's all the information that gives you all the citation details, and it's linked with the file that we open each time. So if you're ever sharing a library with any of your colleagues, you always need to make sure that both of these, the .data folder, as well as the Endnote library, are shared together. So if you're sharing a library, you need to put them in a zip file and compress them and send them to your colleague. Or another way of sharing a library with a colleague is if you go to Endnote, if you file and you save it as a compressed library, that will automatically put the data folder in with it. So when they open it, they have a new library. So I've got my data folder. So I'm going to go in there, and every Endnote data folder has this. It has two separate little file folders, one that contains all the PDFs. So I have 4 records that contain a PDF, and each of them is in a folder within a folder. So to get them all one by one is going to be a real faff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that entire PDF folder. I'm going to copy the contents of it, and then I'm going to move it into my extraction folder because I want to get rid of this later, but I don't want to lose what's in my Endnote library. So I'm going to paste it in there. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to extract the PDFs from that folder. So we have some instructions on our webpage how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I need to type *, full stop, * to search for all file types. And then you can see that these are all the different, so I have empty folders in here, and I also have 4 separate PDFs in here as well. So I've sorted them. I need to view them, and I want to sort them by detail. So I'm going to sort them by file type. I only want my PDFs, so I'm going to select my PDFs, and then I'm going to cut them out of here, and I'm going to move them. Oops, where's my AMIPS folder? Move it back into my PDFs folder. I'm going to paste them in here. And then any other PDFs I get that are associated with the project, I'm going to put them all in this folder, and that's so I know where I can find them when I need them. So I've now extracted my PDFs from Endnote, and I've got them all in one place. So I'm going to go back to my Endnote library, and what I want to do now is I want to upload a PDF. So I'm going to upload a PDF file, add PDF, it's as simple as that. So the first time you do this, it will take you to the last folder that you are using. So I've got my PDFs here. I've got my Melnick folder. I'm going to open it. Again, double check that it's the same record that you need. There's 2 ways you can upload the folder. You can do it as a public file, and that means anybody in the world is able to look at it and to use it, or upload it as a private file. If you upload it as a private file, that means only the people involved in your review can use it. Because of copyright reasons, we always upload as private. So I'm going to upload as private. And then your PDF, you'll see all your records that have a PDF. And so for your full text screening stage, Unfortunately, you need to do this one by one. I haven't worked out how to bulk upload yet, but when I do, I will put it on our web pages. So go to each individual record and upload a PDF. When it comes to screening these records, you and your colleagues will go to the record and you can screen it. Open the PDF. Now, one of the problems with it's not really a problem, but one of the disadvantages of Rayon is you can't really do any data extraction within Rayon. So we can read the PDF online, but we can't annotate it, we can't do much with it. So what I would recommend you do is you go back to your Rayon library. So if there's any sort of useful information in there, again, we sort of include, exclude as we did before. At this stage, be very precise with your exclude reasons, because the numbers you get for exclude, so this one I'm going to include it. So load them one by one, but make sure you're very consistent with your exclude reasons, because these figures will be going into your Prisma diagram. Now, I don't have enough records in here. So once I've made all my screening decisions, I'm going to include and exclude. I might want to start doing data extraction in a program, say like Excel. So I'm going back to a library that I prepared earlier. So we're going to pretend this is our full text screen library now. So what I want to do is, again, I want to extract my studies. So the first thing I want to do is extract my excluded studies, export, but instead of a RefMan file this time, I'm going to extract it as a CSV file and export that. And then that way I can use it as a file for extracting directly in Excel. And again, I would do that with my included studies too. So export, CSV, filtered, export. So I will get an email from Rayon with those two files. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my AMIPS folder with one I did earlier. So the articles I had come as two files. The X file I get, Excel file, sorry, not X files, comes as a Excel file like this. So again, it's got all the key data that we want. So I can highlight this and then I can put a filter on it as well. I don't use Excel very often. So filter. So again, this was my exclusion file and it comes down in the notes field. So I can see my exclusion and my exclusion reasons. So when I'm doing this, I can instantly select, oh, I can make that a little bit bigger. Again, I can select whether or not they're the wrong population, the wrong outcome, and we can see which of my records they are. So these are the titles. Oops. I should have the authors there as well. So yeah, I can sort by author. So when I'm starting to write up my review, I know which reviews were, which papers were excluded and for which reasons. I can also do that with my included.
Natalie, if I can just jump in, we've only got about 5 minutes.
Okay,
now.
well that is pretty much everything. The one last thing I would like to say about Rayon is we've found it so helpful doing international reviews. There are several limitations though that you need to be aware of. One thing is you can't edit or delete individual records. You can only delete bulk import. So whatever you loaded in, if you loaded it individually, you can delete it, but it comes in bulk. You can't annotate PDFs at all, so you need to use the label feature, and you can't extract data from it within the Rayon program itself. But I'm going to hand you back to Judy now. Can you share that, or do I need to unshare? Stop share, here we go.
Okay. Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Natalie, that was really helpful. I'm just going to share my screen with the sort of final slides. Okay, just to kind of finish off the presentation, but as I mentioned in the chat, if you want to put any questions in, that's fine. We had scheduled this to finish at 10:30 in about 5 minutes, but we are around, so happy to carry on and take more questions. I just wanted to do a little bit of a summary of the different software for you now. So, and we've got a couple of people in the waiting room. I don't know if you can see that, Natalie. Yeah.
Yes, I've done that.
Okay, so great. Okay, so reference management software, we've talked about Endnote, but you do need a subscription for the sort of desktop version of Endnote, which is the one we've been using. It's really good for importing lots of records at once, thousands of records, and taking duplicates out. It has sort of more sophisticated features than really any of the other reference management packages for that. However, the online sharing of Endnote libraries isn't as easy as the other packages. So Mendeley and Zotero are completely free. However, there's a limit on the number of PDFs and things you can store there. So at some point you may kind of want to pay to increase your data storage on that. But Mendeley and Zotero were really set up for online sharing of PDFs and grabbing PDFs off and references off web pages. So they are better in some instances. And obviously they're free, so that's useful. Refworks is a subscription one, which is quite a bit cheaper than Endnote. So many libraries subscribe to Refworks and then make that free to their staff and students. For both Endnote and Refworks, there's a 1 month free trial. Yeah, that can be useful. So if you don't have access to Endnote, but you want to use it for a review, then you could just get the 1 month free trial and do all of the bulk importing and deduplicating, and then take that file and put it in Mendeley for sort of carrying on your use with that. Okay, let's go to the next one. I've got some scribble on here. I'm not quite sure how I've got that and whether I can remove that. Clear all my drawings. Yes, there we go. Sorry, not sure how that's happened. Okay, let's go back to that. So here's some links, and we'll send these out after the presentation for guides for reference management software. So the first one is Leeds University Library. Have got some nice videos and guides on how you use Endnote, how you use it within Word when you're citing, and all the sort of the basic features. We've got a link here to our webpage where we have that guide for duplicate checking listed on the Endnote, as well as filters and other things which are really helpful.
And extracting PDFs as well.
yeah, all the different things that we've been talking about today. So that's the main link for that. Refworks, Mendeley and Zotero. Some other libraries have done some really nice web pages that give you lots of guides and links from there. So I've just linked to those. Software for screening. So I put together a little table because we've just looked at Rayon and there's lots of different software available. These are kind of the most commonly used ones, I think, at the moment. And some of them, most of them on here are free. Covidence isn't free, but it could be. So if you're doing a very small review with 500 or less references, then you can use a trial version for that. But it's very rare that you would only have 500 references. However, they have on their website, they're advertising at the moment that if you are a researcher in a lower middle income country doing a review, that they will give you the software for free to do that review. And also if you're doing a COVID review, then they are making it available for free. You need to contact Covidence direct for that. And I'm working on another project where a colleague in Pakistan has set up our review, and that's through Covidence, and that's worked really well. Okay. So they all, apart from the Cochrane Review Manager, allow you to do screening, and then a couple of them Covidence and EPI Reviewer have some data extraction tools, and allow some, an EPI Review obviously kind of takes you through, allows you to do meta-analysis and qualitative analysis. The Cochrane Review Manager at the bottom allows you to do data extraction and also meta-analysis. So there are options. It's difficult to find something that does absolutely everything at the moment. So we tend to use a mix of different softwares. I think if you are interested in using and exploring the different softwares, it's useful to look at this website, the Systematic Review Toolbox. So this is a great website which lists lots of different software tools that are used within systematic reviews. It reviews those tools and gives you a nice summary of them and links for finding out more information and getting to those softwares. It's updated quite frequently, so you can see in the tweets that every so often they'll tweet that they've added a new tool. So you can have a look in here. If you look at the study selection systematic review tools, like Rayon, there's a big list. There's about 10 or 15 in there. So we've only looked at 1 or 2. So there's a lot to look at and compare. Okay, so that's really brought us to the end of our session. I'm sorry we've gone slightly over time. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, just to see if anybody has got any questions, that we could answer sort of now. That would be useful. I'll put my video back on. So I'll wait for some things to come through, but while I'm waiting, what I can do actually is just share that duplicate checking guide, which I have hopefully.
Do you want me to pop it on chat?
I did have it as a screen, but it's disappeared from my screens available. Okay, so if you have any questions, please just pop them in. And if I go to, I need to move my, there we go, here we go. So this is our duplicate checking guide, where initially we tell you an order of databases which is helpful for importing. So that means you get the ones which have better quality references in first, so they're not offered as ones that we delete. The references that you add last are the ones which are sort of defaultly deleted. We then list how it's nice to set up your Endnote library, the display fields which are helpful to see, and then we kind of go through changing all those different settings when you're doing duplicate checking. And we've got a few different ways that you sort them, and then you select different fields that you want to check on. So to begin with, it's very thorough. We look at quite a lot of fields together: author, year, title, journal. If those are all exactly the same, then we're very confident they're duplicates, and we gradually loosen up that duplicate checking, looking at fewer and fewer fields, and slightly different combinations of those, but taking more care before we delete them that they really are duplicates or not. Okay, so that's a helpful place, and that's on this website here, our information specialists website. So we will circulate those things. Okay, it looks like there's a couple of things in the chat. I can't see that, so I need to, let me stop sharing.
I think it was just me sending the link to the Endnote page.
No, there's a question. Do you have a list of popular reasons and labels for exclusion, or do you or often define every time you do a systematic review? Since to do a systematic review, a group of members needed to involve. So yeah, so this is about the reasons and labels for exclusion. You would tailor them to every review that you do, and as a group you would agree those, and you generally agree those at the protocol stage. When you're writing the protocol, you list there what you're going to include and exclude. So there are some things which are very obvious, and it depends a lot on your review. So if you're doing an intervention review that's focused on RCTs, then a popular reason or label for exclusion would be things like a case study, or things which are not an RCT. So you might just have a reason which says not RCT. So there are some which are frequently used, but I don't think there's any which are always used for all reviews. Things like language, if you don't have the facilities to translate at that point, it may be, that's a label that we often use. Are there any sort of other labels or reasons you can think of, Natalie, which were kind of quite frequently used? You're muted.
Lots of noise going on in the background here. The labels we tend to use tend to be more about either uncertainties, particularly in the screening stage. So again, if you're not sure about something, when it comes to sort of reconciling your differences with your co-screener, I tend to use the labels field for that. Sort of, again, it's sort of a reminder to me as to why I've included or excluded something. Whereas the exclude reasons are sort of fairly obvious. Again, it does depend on your review type, because they are geared towards an intervention review and RCTs, but it is quite straightforward to add new ones as well. But yeah, no, it's mainly things like if I'm interested, say, in prevalence or in countries. So I personally tend to use Endnote more for sort of reminders and grouping and organising and condensing my information. So again, if I'm grouping studies, if I'm interested in, say, prevalence of nursing self-harm, if I'm interested in UK studies, I would always do that in Endnote. So again, when I come to writing up, it's much easier when it's in my Endnote library than if it's in the Rayon library. So I tend to use them both sort of as a joint tool.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That was a message sort of directly to me, so that's why it didn't come up with the chat. But I thought it's a useful question. And yeah, there's been a few questions about whether we whether we're recording this and making that available. So we will do, as we've done in the past. We have it's gone on the response and the AMIPS sort of shared areas, and I think I just need to check with Anna Cronin de Chavet how we kind of get that video out to everybody who's been able to attend. So I think in the past they have contacted Anna with Anna's just put a message in saying that we're going to put it on YouTube, so that will make it a lot easier to share, so we can share it amongst all our project groups here, those links to the YouTube video. Good. Okay, I haven't got anything else that's come up in the chat as yet, so I'm happy to draw this to a close.
Sorry, Judy, can I come in just a
Yes.
word? This one, I'm not using the chat format. Yeah, I just want to know, because of most of the participants of this webinar come from low and middle income countries, and this where we have resource constraint. And then with the Rayon and then Endnote, is there a possibility that somebody who is doing a systematic review over there, and it's important, one can contact you for help? And then what are the formality, the modalities? Is it come with a cost? Can you do it free for them? This is something, and being rewarded with authorship. And this can you throw light on this one so that we know where they can seek help and whether the two of you can help or not? I know you are very busy working between projects, but just something that I want us to discuss.
Yeah.
Realities, yeah.
Okay, so I suppose so the way we work, so we're called information specialists. We're basically librarians, and we're funded by research projects to support systematic reviews. So each time we work on a project, they, a bit like any other researcher, they pay for time. So on the response and the AMIPS projects, we've been paid to work on that. So if you're within those projects, then of course you can come to us with queries and questions about about Endnote or Rayon, or the systematic review that we're doing. That's all part of our funding. We're not funded to help on the other projects, and if you're doing things separately to that, then again we're not funded to do that. It's difficult. As librarians, we are very keen to help people, so it's very hard for us to say no, but we do have to, because we do literally have about 50 different projects on the go at a time. So I would encourage you to either go directly to the website help. So very often on things like Endnote and Mendeley and all these different softwares, they do have their own support that they give there, and they have chats that they're available. So we'd encourage you to go there. Also, I don't know how you're set up with your own institutions and libraries, but I would, it would be nice if you could go to your own librarians and ask for support there. If they're not particularly used to or familiar with this software, it might be something that they're interested in developing skills in that field. So if you don't ask them, they might not be aware that this is something that you would like to know about. So it's worth having that conversation with them as well. Their training in other kinds of databases and software will be transferable to these kind of software. So hopefully they can support you as well. So yeah, but basically we do need funding to give you proper support and help. The odd small question we might be able to help with, or we can just sort of send that back and say, I'm sorry, this is a bigger question, you're going to have to go back to your own librarians, or back to Rayon support itself to help with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's a detailed answer. Thank you so much for your answer. So it comes back to participants from Africa and maybe Asia. Now, this is why you need to develop the skill yourself to be able to do most of the things that they are showing us today. Because in the UK and developed countries, all of them have information specialists, but we can't count on any information specialist in Africa to the best of my knowledge. So those who have interest in these areas, I think you have to begin to specialize, because there is demand, a high demand, and then the supply is so low. So opportunity cost, this is an area that you would always be part of the maybe the discussion table, because the demand is high and you have low supply. So this one is an opportunity cost. I urge some of you, those who are interested in this, maybe contact Judy and then Natalie, or maybe through myself, or maybe Tolib and the team leaders, to see how we can collaborate to train some people across Africa and then other low and middle income countries to help them to also to do systematic reviews. One other thing is that most of these countries don't have the OVID, that is an aggregator engine. So normally most people cannot use Medline. The one that you have shown is interesting, but what that is, these people can use is PubMed, which is different interface. And when you are searching, it is not the same as the Medline. So that is also, we are working on it. We don't know. So sometimes we don't know. So sometimes we want us to come out with the disparities. When you are searching PubMed alone, do you miss some studies compared to when you're using Medline? And then to which degree can that one influence the studies that you retrieve for your systematic review? Because systematic review is, the search is supposed to retrieve every study available out there to include. So do we have some limitations using PubMed? And if that is it, what else do we do? So this is something that I want us to ponder on. And thank you. Maybe I should run up, and for some other people, so much. This has been one of the most interesting part that I really have enjoyed. And I'm also so grateful that you people accepted it kindly to extend the search further to this. And this is going to be one of the best presentations so far that I can really talk of. So thank you so much. And I hope, and because most of them are beginners, they will not have been able to follow, because this is skill-based, they have to do it over and over. So be prepared that probably at some point, we may call you to come and deliver the same thing over and over, so that others who are learning can learn the skills and then see how they can move forward systematic reviews in these settings. Thank you so much, Judy and Natalie, for wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, so thank you. We'll call this to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Yeah, we'll wait for the next in the series, I guess, of the webinars. Yeah.
And that one is coming on the 15th of December. So next 15th.
15th of December.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's going to be that one is going to be slightly on the selection of studies, just using the tool, the validated tools that you can use to select, and then how to the extraction of data. This one will take only a few minutes, but the main emphasis will be assessing quality of the included studies for risk of bias, which is very important, because in this case, we are going to dissect each of the studies that have been included in the systematic review for validity of the evidence. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye, everybody.
Right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, I'll stop the recording now.